is my first time. Thank you. Katie's here backing up in case I fall out. But I just want to say welcome and thank you guys so much for putting this on, for this panel being here. You guys are all fantastic. I can't wait to hear what you say. Thank you to Laura and Tyler for coordinating all of this and getting it all taken care of. I know there's a lot of events tonight, so thanks for choosing this to come out and be with us all tonight. So enjoy. I'm not going to take any more time. Thanks. Thank you, Ginger.
First, we'd like to thank our 2016 sponsors, our diamond partner, Lane and Dirt. We'd also like to thank our diamond partner, Mohawk Group. Our 2016 platinum partners, Hayworth and Collection. Our 2016 gold partners, All Steel, HBF, Gunlock, Herman Miller, Knoll, Lutron, Metals Office Interiors, Steelcase, Coalesce, Design Tex, Tarcat. We'd also like to thank our 2016 silver partners. And we'd like to thank our 2016 design firm partners. We'd also like to thank our event sponsors. Steelcase, thank you so much for your generous hospitality and letting us use your lovely space, and for providing the bar and the catering. We would also like to thank HBF for their generous sponsorship of our event as well. Some upcoming chapter events through October. A sneak peek on Color Invasion. Upcoming A&D industry events. NCIDQ dates. IDL NY. And we'd like you to visit our website, IIDANewYork.org, to view the calendar. And if you'd like to post your event on the calendar, please do so via this website. And we want everyone to join us on social media. Post with the hashtag IIDANY. So tonight we bring together a diverse set of panelists that span the generations from millennials to baby boomers. They will discuss the interesting trichotomy of generations in the workplace. First, we have Dane Sibrinson. He's a designer at HOK's New York studio, where he works in their healthcare practice group on large-scale projects. He graduated from Ringling College of Art and Design with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Design. He currently serves on the Board of Trustees for the institution. In his free time, he enjoys exploring city's art scene, frequenting galleries, museums, and performing arts venues. Our next panelist is Christina Skoronsky. She's been working as a millennial in the design industry for over 5 years. She joined Gensler soon after graduating from Philadelphia University with a Bachelor's of Science in Interior Design. She practices as a designer and strategist focusing on designing workplace for technology companies. She's an office leader for the technology practice area, as well as a firm-wide office leader for Gensler's community service and social impact work. Through work on service projects, Christina has developed a growing partnership between Gensler and City Year, and currently is the vice chair of the City Year Associate Board. Next we have Siraj Bhatia. Siraj is the design director at HLW International's New York headquarters. He has over 17 years experience as a design professional and is a leader for design and innovation at HLW. Siraj is committed to developing balanced and creative solutions for the architectural and interior components of space, leading a team that is responding to the demands of a changing workplace. Siraj is a graduate of California College of Arts in Fine Arts in Interior Architecture. Addie Mazorsky has a combined 16 years of experience designing for commercial interiors, high-end residential, and acclaimed film and television projects. With her varied design background, she creates dynamic spaces tailored to her clients' particular needs. She is also a visiting assistant professor at the Pratt Institute and a mother of a toddler in her spare time. Our next panelist, Randy, he may not even need much of an introduction. He is an interior designer with more than 37 years experience working in corporate interiors. He is a graduate of Parsons School of Design. He worked for Skidmore, Owens & Merrill in both their New York and London offices. After 22 years, he moved to Swanky Hayden Connell Architects for 3 years and has now been at Gensler for 11. Most of his work is focused on projects in the financial sector. However, he has done projects in hospitality, not-for-profit, municipal, and healthcare. He is also a former president of the New York chapter of IIDA and has been active with the organization since 1998. And last but certainly not least, Barry Richards is the principal and studio leader at Rockwell Group, where he brings his multifaceted skill set to work focusing on projects, productions, and playgrounds. Barry is well known for his set design for film, television, and theater, including the 2009 and 2010 Academy Awards, the film Teach for America World Police, and Broadway shows including Hairspray and Catch Me If You Can. Barry is a graduate of the University of Washington in Fine Arts and Architecture and Princeton University, Master of Architecture, and currently serves as the IIDA New York chapter's Hospitality Forum Director. Taylor, our moderator for the night, is an up-and-coming designer at Gensler, and she will moderate our panel. Taylor is a graduate of Marymount University and has been in the industry for 5 years. She is also a millennial.
Thank you, Laura, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. Tonight you've heard about our 6 distinguished panelists. We will be discussing a very trending topic, generations in the workplace. The American workforce currently has 3 to 4 generations depending on the built environment. That really affects a multitude of things. It affects cost effectiveness, it affects employee retention, and in regard to those in this room, it affects design. So tonight we're going to dive in, dig deep, and talk about the good and the bad of the 3 generations represented here. So with that said, I think we can jump right in. We'll have about 40 to 50 minutes of panel discussion, and then we'll leave time for question and answer with the audience. So I'll start with Barry and work the way down. This is a question for all of the panelists. What do you think your generation's biggest asset is to the workplace?
Our generation. I think our biggest asset is context. Having context, a sense of history, a sense of knowing, what's happened, so we can kind of put things in context. A little bit of sense of references. I think our references kind of span along our generation. So we sort of essentially put a project in context, where the design and precedents come from. I think, just having a little bit more experience kind of opens up a wider range of influences, a wider range of kind of knowledge base, and bringing all that into it. I think it's just, been living there longer, it's longer experience, you can bring all that to that.
Okay, great. Randy, do you agree?
I agree with Barry. In terms of, the older I get, the more time I spend looking at what has happened in the past and bringing that into my thinking with work. The other big thing is I just have a lot of clients in my history. I have dealt with so many different situations. I've had clients throw pens at me, I've had clients love me, and the longer you work, the more you are able to read what is going on, both in terms of your clients and also the people that you work with. And I think having that experience really is the greatest, aspect that you bring to a project. You're able to really sort of bring all that history and knowledge and ability to read people that younger people don't have. I also, as a designer, would rather let younger designers sort of bring energy and freshness to work, but as an older designer, I'm able to sort of edit and steer that in a direction that I think is going to be really successful.
Well, I'll see if this one works. Okay. So I think what Generation X really brings is maybe the balance between the two generations. We have enough life experience to bring to the table that we can present ourselves in professional manners, but yet we are still technology savvy. We've grown up with computers. I had a Macintosh in my elementary school, so we have that balance. Plus, perhaps we have, at least speaking personally, we have more varied work experiences. So I've had several career changes throughout my life, and I've been able to bring past experiences from other related design jobs that I've had into my present position. So I think that's perhaps what I see as my take on Generation X in the workplace. Mr. Raj?
So many answers.
Okay.
But I think it's good if we agree,
Yeah.
right? That's our generation. Balance, I think, is a key word. I think mostly because we've learned a lot from previous generations, but we also are able to pass that on in a way to younger generations. So I think because we can relate in some ways to older generations, also younger generations. And I think, like you said, we have an understanding of technology. I still feel weird on Snapchat, but other I think we kind of bridge the gap in a way between older and younger generations because we have an understanding of both and we can relate to both in different ways. So I think balance is basically, yeah. 2 stars.
Going off of that, I would say technology is a huge one, and I think just like the adaptability to new technologies is really key, because it's like what I was doing in college is totally different than what I'm doing now, but I think we're used to technology changing so rapidly that we are willing to just adapt and learn something new and just kind of understand the efficiencies that it brings to projects. So I think it's been a pretty good work down here. Yeah, but I think just
with technology.
I can attest to that.
Well, I think everybody kind of wrapped up what I was going to say, but I definitely think it's the transference of knowledge. We always turn, as a junior, I always turn to my seniors to kind of lead and guide the project, and again, using their real world experience. It's something that we don't have, but we do have the freshness and kind of the insight of what's going on from a technological standpoint, and kind of what the new hip in vogue trend that's going on right now, and again to also kind of see what's going on or what's going to happen kind of in the future with that trend. I think we can help guide the design in that kind of manner. If that makes sense.
Thank you all for your answers. I want to kind of build on what you, Dane, and Christina have said about the being in vogue and being on trend. Do you feel pressure in the workplace to always have that innovative idea or to always come with some fresh design?
I think to an extent, yes, but I think, do I have the answer at that time when I'm asked? No. I think for me, it's a lot about research. It's a lot about inquiring. It's a lot about kind of figuring out the question, looking at it through different lenses, looking at it through different kind of means. What would I want to put in front of my boss? What does the client want to see? So I think that trying to find that is something that I look at kind of daily.
I would say I feel pressure to, like, more on the technology side, and that might just be like a role that I'm in currently, but I think I feel more pressure to make technology work in a way that it doesn't necessarily work. Like, in the sense that people, like, it's like, oh, well, you can just do that really fast, right? Or you can just, like, it's a magic wand, it's easy. And, so I feel that pressure a lot, and then, you know, just like, how fast can I actually do this? And just making people understand that. So.
Right, and so Generation X or baby boomers, how do you guys feel about your expectations of what millennials are bringing to the table when it comes to technology and or innovation?
I hope for the best. It's interesting. I was trained later in life. I was probably 35. I learned how to draw on the computer with a program that's long gone away. But working with younger designers, I know when not to expect miracles. I like to believe that I ask what's possible, I ask what they can do, and I actually find myself giving people pointers on how to draw, even on the computer, because of the fact that I was trained to draw by hand. I understand like ways of skipping or ways of achieving things that younger people don't know about. Like, for instance, pull the viewpoint way out of the picture and it'll improve your perspective. Younger people don't know that stuff, but they know how to draw it from the computer. So I think that there's still some collaboration, but as I said, I hope for the best. I work with younger people and I say, what can you do? And what will that look like? Could you change it? So again, it's more of an editor than somebody who is driving technology.
Okay, and Suraj or Addie, I'm sure you're kind of in the middle of that, offering the technology and then also editing it down or offering solutions. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, with technology, I think our generation, we still have an understanding of technology, although I'm dating, but my slanders in the back can tell me that. But, I mean, we have an understanding of how technology works and how much time it takes to do certain things, but I think, similar to our previous generation, we can offer guidance of how you can use the technology to be more efficient and when I went to school, I was trained to hand draft. We didn't have technology necessarily as part of our, but that hasn't changed, so that's important. But, having that background and having that transition from going from hand drafting to using technology throughout my career, I can kind of pass on that understanding to the next generation to really utilize your tools in the right way.
I would just add to that sometimes maybe I do have a preconception when I work with a millennial that they're automatically going to know more than I do about certain programs, and sometimes, as you've alluded to, I actually might know more in depth about certain things. So I think it's good to not go in with the preconceived notion that of course they're going to know more than we do about certain things. That there has to be a feel out to see what really is the ceiling of their knowledge. So I've noticed a lot of the young designers coming in, they might have a surface knowledge of a program, but to really make it work, the program work the best, they still need the training and tutorial to bring them up to the professional level, I would say.
So I think it's interesting as technology is both a tool and as a feature, and you kind of need to kind of always be curious. So I don't think it's always the latest technology. It's not what industry want to land with, understand the whole problem, but you have to maintain it. It's not about your tools that you have to sort of stay adept with, you have to be curious about, and you can't just let it, leave it to millennials and say, you're the ones that understand it better than I, then you're going to be sort of left out of it. So I think the curiosity part is the critical piece of, technology is another thing to play with, another thing to add to your toolbox to become a feature of your design.
Great. So, Barry, when you're speaking out of curiosity, how do you find you look for inspiration or look for a new source, technology, design? I know millennials and everyone in this room can probably speak to Pinterest. or magazines, but do you use that mental Rolodex that Randy was speaking of, or?
I think absolutely. I think I'm really fortunate to have a visual memory that's really good. And having a visual memory, I say I look at everything and I try to pull from everything from, what you read, what you look at, what you see on the street. Like New York City is an incredible place, very from high to low, travel. When I look at the internet, I'm usually looking for a specific search, like a particular idea or concept, or then I let myself meander. The only thing I don't use very often is Pinterest. I'm a little nervous, like Pinterest is like magazines used to be, that if someone shows me an image from Pinterest, I go, that's cool. Really quickly, I will see that in 5 or 6 projects, and it gets repeated Pinterest effect. So I think that it's this idea of curiosity. You have to always be looking, always be investigating, always kind of, when you see any kind of place, looking at it, and then bringing in part of your visual vocabulary.
On the same subject, interestingly enough, I was having this conversation with somebody who was in the room 2 weeks ago, where I was saying, do I really want to go on Pinterest? Because I don't think I do. And I logged on, I sort of set it up, and now every day I get something that annoys me. And that's how I feel. So that's how I feel about Pinterest. But when a junior designer that I work with is able to pull up images that reinforce the ideas that I want to tell people or that I want to share with clients, I'm like, thank you. So I'm very grateful. I think it's a tool for communication. I don't think it's a tool. I don't like the idea of it being a tool for design. I walk around with my own visual library, and that's my tool for design. Looking at photos. I have a story where there was a speaker, an IIDA speaker, who I was meeting with before we went on stage, and I was telling him this story. This guy that I work with, his approach to designing spaces, he pictures it as a magazine cover, and he designs the space to look like the magazine cover. And the person I was speaking with thought that was the best idea in the world. And I was appalled that he thought that was a good way to design. But I think of Pinterest in the same way. I think it's good to represent your ideas, but I don't think it's good to have your ideas or generate your ideas.
Okay, do we have any pro Pinteresters on the panel?
You want to take it away?
I feel like it can go both ways. Technology is both great and evil, because I think if you rely on it for your ideas, it's really negative, because you're basically just copying what you see, as opposed to using it as another source of inspiration. I think inspiration just comes from everywhere, so your daily experiences, places you visit, but also things that you see. I follow a lot of things on Facebook and Instagram and different things, and I might see something not necessarily natural space, but maybe just something someone posts that's really interesting, like something to do with fashion or something to do with nature. It's like bringing a lot of the world closer to you that you may not have access to. So I think if you use it as a tool in that way, it can be a really positive thing.
I agree with that.
And I'll add to where do I get my creativity from. What I would find, I have used Pinterest before, but I do find it to be a rabbit hole where I end up in a place I didn't really want to be in the first place. And when I first started doing design, it was for films, and we would always start with the set of a character and really try to delve into what is this character about and build the set to become that character. So we would use images, and I would send an intern to the library, because it was still before that time, and we would go to the resource libraries and pull out images that would not necessarily be one-for-one, this is what we want a set to look like, but this is a mood, or this is the tree in bloom that becomes, the petals float down and becomes a scene. So we would use it for certain reference images, but definitely not a one-to-one. So I've carried that over into my more built environments, I would say. But I've had a lucky
I would say that I actually use Pinterest for a lot of other things that aren't work, like cooking or whatever crafts. And through that, maybe you see something like you're saying, you come across something that's a good inspiration. But I would say I also rely on like my design director, whoever I'm meeting with, to come up with an idea and use Pinterest or just use the ability to search the internet to reinforce those ideas. Like Randy was saying, it's like, because you come up with an idea and then it's like, well, how are we going to sell this? And I think just maybe the knowingness of how to search certain things, or like go through Pinterest or go through Google and find the images that correctly represent the ideas that our design directors have is what I would use it mostly for.
I think at the crux of it, we're all like storytellers and visual storytellers. And I think, again, piggybacking off the whole topic of finding things that kind of reinforce the concept, reinforce what we're trying to tell, the story, how we're trying to pitch to the client, what we're trying to convey. I mean, like healthcare clients especially, walking yourself through a space for a cancer patient. What is that like? I haven't experienced that, but this is my perception of that. And here are things in ways in which the environment can help, kind of nurture, foster, and elevate that patient's experience. So for me, it's definitely about storytelling. I also find myself like collaging in some weird way. It's a fascination. So I have so many moleskins that like are at home. They're just collaged, and it's just random things that I find inspiring. But I think Pinterest definitely can be a rabbit hole that you fall into, and it can be a crutch in some way. I mean, I would lie if I didn't tell you that I didn't have it, and I, sit on the train every morning in pen. But I do. But I think, I think it's to reinforce a concept, to reinforce an idea. How do you capture an entire thesis statement in one image or in 3 images, and they can be completely out of context, but it's just something visceral. Like you have this visceral reaction to kind of what's presented in front of you. And I think telling a story about that, for me, that's how I use that tool more as a storytelling.
Great.
I just want to jump in. I think one of the big changes, I think that this whole discussion centers on the fact that design has changed so much in the 37 years, 38 years that I've been working, is that so much of design now is about brand, about lifestyle, about storytelling. That certainly didn't exist in SOM in 1980. Good design was good design was good design. It was the diagram. It was, there wasn't this whole painting a picture, which now happens in design every minute.
Right.
And so that's where Pinterest does come in helpful, because it helps you imagine a world.
And I actually wanted to build on that notion of selling design. Right now, I think everybody can attest to fast-paced design and how quickly you have to get deliverables to our clients. That's anywhere from renderings to look and feel using Pinterest. So if you guys could speak to how you think that's helping or hindering design, and as we go up in the generation, how you think the past days were better or worse without these tools.
I mean, not to be anecdotal, but I think it's like fine art, or not fine art, fine dining. It's like you're creating a meal. I think that sometimes, again, if we fall into the whole Pinterest pool, then it's just fast food design. We're eating Burger King, and we're producing Burger King for our clients, and that's not.
Did you feel that way about renderings as well?
No,
Kind of quick turnover of that, or?
I think the fast-paced deadlines, I think that's what gets me, because I think you have to have time to implore, you have to have time to explore, think, iterate, ideate, have conversation, read a book, walk, go get coffee. You need time to just really cull it over, really think about it, kind of kick the tires, test some things out, go to a museum. I mean, that's how I work. I have to be completely out of the office, and I'm kind of known, but I have to go get coffee.
Very millennial.
But I think that in my daily life, I find things inspiring. I mean, it's just how it strikes me, like a paper bag floating in the air, or the way the sunlight is hitting the curtain wall over here. I think that you think about things. That's just who we are. There's a certain romanticism to the whole field, and I think that if you don't have time to kind of explore and think about and postulate, it's just fast food, and it's like fine dining. I mean, you're making a meal, so.
Yeah, I would agree, and then also not to beat this to death, but I think the technology thing is huge because it's like, oh, again, you can do this so fast and you're turning things around.
As a millennial myself, looking at design as a whole is sometimes a challenge because I only have a certain bandwidth. So do you remember a point or a year or a time where you really started to click and think about it full circle as far as deliverables and timeline?
Yes, I do. I'm a trained as an architect. I also studied art because I always wanted to do art. My dad told me that as a second grade, you can't be an artist, you won't make money, so you have to be an architect. I listened, but I still didn't give it up. It came about probably at Rockwell Group, where I went from Master's of Architecture and then did product design, and then came to Rockwell Group and did products. But I got to work with a lot of different disciplines: product designers, graphic designers, architects, interiors. And it really is theater is the one that made the connective tissue. That made the leap between that, because in theater you have to think, what is the essential story you're telling? How do you communicate that? It's not an architectural story, it's not a set. The set design supports that big piece. So each of the architecture, if you're a architect, it's all about the architecture. Everything is about the design, the architecture. But if you really want to create this experience, you're really thinking of its graphics, its interiors, its finish, it's the FF&E. And so you kind of try to transcend the individual disciplines, which are defining it by a narrow band, into the big overall picture. And so I think that theater was the one that helped me kind of push me to think about all the disciplines together. So when we sit down and look at something, it's never just a technology solution, it's never just an interior solution or an architect, it's how you create an overall experience that kind of connects everything.
For me, it's definitely been in layers. There were times, again, working at SOM where we were very structured and we had an understanding of what made clear architecture and how things were detailed, and that was the story. Beautiful, clean, simple architecture, detailed beautifully. And then gradually our clients wanted different types of things, different environments that felt different. And it took me a while to get used to that. But I would find myself working with a team at like 9 o'clock at night going, what are we gonna do? And I'd be like, I'm really not sure yet. I don't know, let me think about it. And I would come in the next morning at 8 and I'd say, here's what we're gonna do. And they'd be like, when did that happen? How did that happen? And it would happen to me at 5 in the morning because I'd be so anxious that I'd be running it over in my head. But in bed, I was able to I felt free enough to drift and come up with ideas. So that was one big thing in terms of sort of telling a story. Another thing is after I left SOM, I worked for a period just freelance with a woman who does branding, and her task was to pick apart an existing furniture manufacturer in terms of what they made, what they sold, what it looked like. And it was a manufacturer that I'd used a lot when I was younger, but it had gotten kind of faded. And we looked at it from every angle, and what was the story we were going to tell, what was the furniture going to look like, what types of furniture, and it just sort of changed my way of approaching the design problem, and understanding the big picture and being able to communicate one big story in 9 different ways.
Right, so it sounds like the cross-discipline of design has really helped you guys understand the whole process. Can anybody else on the panel speak to that?
I'll just continue down the line then. I mean, I did have the opportunity to start telling stories from the beginning, which really helped me to really delve into it and to really understand what was involved with creating a certain environment to translate to the end user. And then that's definitely carried over into my corporate work in a lot of ways. I think really with the corporate work was really seeing it completed and seeing even the day 2 how the users use the space and what could be improved on really completed that story for me, because for the first part of my career I was always telling the story but never heard what was the sequel to that story. So I really value staying in contact and keeping those clients and making sure that that we are able to have that conversation post-occupancy. That for me completes that story. Okay, nothing else.
Daniel or Christina, do you have any comments on the idea of how you put the story together in your head and how the design process works for you right now at this stage in your career?
Yeah, I mean, with healthcare clients, one in particular, the one big project I'm on. I think you have to think about it holistically, and like Frank Lloyd Wright, it's like the universal Kunstwerk, like the complete totality of the design. So, you know, thinking about efficiencies of the design. What is when you arrive at the hospital? What is the entry sequence? What are you graced by? Is it environmental, like site-specific artwork? How do you check in when you are taken to whatever floor you're going to for whatever appointment? What is the receptionist? What is she wearing? What are the scrubs? What do the scrubs look like? Is there an efficiency for surgeons that you can redesign scrubs to think about it more as an efficiency manner? So, you know, are you working with like, I don't know, public school or like some really avant-garde fashion, right? Is Miyake? How are you thinking about things? And I think that the story has to go down to every single step-by-step, play-by-play, minute-by-minute of every individual in that type of space. So you have the doctor, you have the clinician, you have the janitorial staff. How do you think of all those people working in one environment together? And then how does it become a branded experience? And how does it support the brand and support like the mission of the institution? And I think for me, like, I mean, healthcare, that's for me, you can think about it in that whole way, and you can have those types of philosophical conversations and see the actual kind of end result kind of come to fruition. That's what we're pitching. But for me, that's what gets me excited with it.
You're here.
I would just say, so doing like tech and startup, it's like a little bit similar in a way where we have these companies who are maybe like 50 to 100 people, and they're projecting to grow to be like double that in size and maybe even more. And you know, they're at a key point where their brand is critical, and what is this space going to convey to their workers and to the outside? And so I think that we're kind of forced to think about it long term instead of just like what's the best solution for you right now, because this is a big decision they're making, and I just think we're involved in that whole, it's kind of like carrying them through the whole process.
Okay, so it sounds like end users in mind, and of course the cross-discipline of different design fields is really helping everyone on the panel out as far as thinking about the whole story. So we're going to switch from the topic of design and tech to career and core values, get a little bit more controversy. And we're going to go back to Dane's comment about coffee breaks and walks and that seemed to be the real trending topic about generations is how millennials and the hot button word of entitlement and the changes in the workplace. So I'll let you guys defend yourself first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always like popping by it, and there are always calendar invites of out of office, out of office, out of office, out of office. And I don't know, for me, it's just inspiring. We live in the greatest city. I mean, let's be honest, we can walk anywhere, we can see anything. We went and saw Menace Machina the other day at our studio did. It was an absolutely amazing show. But just getting out of the office, having inspired design conversation. And I think, again, exploring, ideating, just getting out and having these conversations. We have walking meetings, and that's one of our conference rooms. It's being out on the street. And for me, it's like the best thing. It's like, great. I can actually step away and kind of get out and explore. But at the end of the day, yes, we do have a deliverable that needs to be, delivered to the client. And I'm not going to stop at any cost to not like get that done. But I think in order to really make it something that we're all proud of, and to really elevate the design and elevate the way of thinking and help elevate the brand and again the story and strengthen the story, I think it's something that's really needed and it's extremely important to it. But I could see where someone could perceive that as like, where is Dane? Why is Dane not at his desk? No, but I also work late hours, so I think it's nice to kind of get out and enjoy life and enjoy the city as much as we can, and kind of take what we can from it and bring that back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I would second that. When you have a deliverable, you're going to get it done, and until you're not doing your job, I don't think. Yeah, but I just think that you get more inspiration, or maybe you just work better really early in the morning, or you work better late at night, and our generation is also surrounded by a lot of people who do work for these tech companies, these startup companies, and that's the lifestyle they have. So these are people that we're interacting with on the daily basis, and when it's like, well, I have to be at work at this time, and I have to work like, the full, like 8 hours, like 8:30 to 5:30, and it's like not flexible, even though it's like 8:30 to 12:30, and I still have to be in at 8:30 the next morning. I just think like we're surrounded by a lot of people who have that, and I think that a lot of millennials will strive to have that too, and if they don't get that, then they would possibly think about like changing industries or doing something else. I mean, there's like other jobs in tech or other kind of companies where I think you can get that.
One last thing, I promise. The one thing that I cannot do is work at home. There's too many distractions. It can be like the whole design. I feel like you need to have that incubator to like work within and run from someone else's desk and like, okay, we just had a charrette. What are we working on? Like, here's some ideas that I had. I think that that's lost, and for me, I know that a lot of my peers are used to working at home, and for me, that just, it doesn't, because the conversation isn't there. I mean, you can be on Jabber all day, let's be honest, but picking up the phone and calling, I think, is something, and hearing a human voice at the end and actually walking someone through it, I think it's very important. So.
Oh, sure. Well, I think responding to what you just said, I think we should. Well, I think one thing that's interesting is that we often forget is that. You hear me? We work in a creative field, and we're all creative people. So creative people don't always work in the same way because we're naturally artists. So, but we're put in a corporate environment where we need to produce. So I think. And I don't think this is a generational thing. I think it's just a different personality and different background. I think that every firm is different and every firm is sort of trained in a different way. And being a Gen Xer who's sort of like, I don't know, middle management. Yes. Well, I'm sort of at the cusp because I know what the partners and principals, I know their perspective on things, but I also understand what a lot of the younger designers are thinking, and so I hear both sides, and I hear different opinions of how people work, and I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about certain people's process because people work in different ways. Like you said, some people are more productive in the morning, some people need to go for a walk. So I think overall, just the fact that we are in a creative industry, we need to remember that we work in different ways and we produce in different ways and we come up with ideas in different ways. And I think I work with a lot of tech companies. Like Google's one of my biggest clients. So I see on a daily basis like people taking naps or and they say this makes me more productive. I'm like, all right, if you say so, but good for you. That's great. But I think it's just another way of understanding like people are more productive in different ways, and I think that's something we can definitely learn from younger generations and startups. Having that understanding of, there's a flexibility of how people work. It's no longer about like you have to sit at your desk from 9 to 5 and constantly be producing, because especially as creative people, you can't just sit and stare at your monitor all day and actually come up with ideas. I mean, like you said, in the middle of the night, that idea comes to you. Well, that can happen in the middle of the day, but by sitting at your desk, maybe it's stifling and it's kind of limiting your creativity. But if you went for a walk and the water for like 10 minutes or got a cup of coffee, it might be more inspiring.
I would say that, of course, being creative, those ideas will come to you in the shower or at random places, and that most of the time they don't come to you when you're sitting at your desk trying to come up with an idea. That said, I think that I've seen kind of like a tension sometimes between the baby boomers and the millennials, maybe, that in my personal experience, we've seen my principals comment that maybe some people are working in my team saying, well, they come in at 9:15. And, but for me, that matters less than dedication to the work and getting the work done. I don't believe in, in putting the time in. I believe in efficiency and making your work-life balance, which I'm sure will be a topic coming up, important. So I personally value some flexibility in my work life, and I need it actually at this point in my life as well. So I think that's one thing that kind of employers who might be more on the baby boomer side have to remember moving forward as workplace dynamics changing.
Yeah. I grew up with a lot of, working in an environment that had tons of discipline. The expectations were ridiculous. We were working 60-hour weeks, which I'm sure you guys do often enough now too. But it was the rules. When you came to work, it was the rules. You were there, you were at your desk, you were available. But I don't really think that way, and I personally, the people that I work with, if they're bringing it, I don't care what the formula is. There are times of day when they need to be there so that if something comes up, it's addressed. But what I will comment on, getting in terms of the whole millennial commentary about millennial, is I find that there are people who don't bring it, who don't understand why I'm not happy when they don't bring it. So, and again, I don't mind, like, you need to go walk as part of your process, I'm fine with it. But it's the confusion in my unhappiness if you're not doing your job. And that's my little rant about.
One of the things that you is coffee. Coffee is a totally different experience. So Randy and I might remember this. Coffee was a time that you hit 10 o'clock and you left your desk, you went to the kitchen, and you spent 10 minutes and you shared a cup of coffee with a coffee machine, and you went back to your desk. It was only 10 minutes. And you might, if it was flexible, you might say to your friend, go, break time? And you would take that 10 minutes. Now coffee, because most of you here probably don't know that picture, what life was like. It was, you came in at a certain time, it was very structured, and it was mandated by legal precedent, because if they didn't give it to you, you worked through it, and that was illegal. But now coffee means like we're going to go for coffee, which means a destination coffee down the street, 2 blocks away, 3 or 4 people go. It's 20 or 30 minutes later, they come back. And what you have to do is now it's kind of like live with it. You have to get over it and live with it. It's just different. But I think the world we're not only creative people, we're also people who produce things. We also produce things in groups. So it demands space time. We need to be there at the same time together. I think you can sort of say, oh, you're allowed to be creative, but you really have to be, we have a lot of flex between 8:30 to 9:30. I just, it starts getting people to 10. I kind of, where are they? Because if they're not there, they're going to miss part of the interaction that is important to create collaborative work. And collaborative work is where you're together. I think design, more than any other job, is collaborative. It is space time to each other, and you need to kind of be there so if something happens, you can talk about an idea and not wait, 3 hours later, someone's, coming in at 1 o'clock. So I think there is, being creative is one thing, but we're also probably 90% of the time producing, all the work that we're creative about, and we have to kind of work together. But coffee, do whatever you want. If you want to go for a half hour, go for a half hour. Get that great coffee.
Okay, so we're going to spend the next about 10 minutes, and we're going to kind of do a rapid fire, so feel free to answer. No particular order, and keep it short. So I will ask this question to Randy. Your first design program, a fun fact for us that you mentioned earlier, the first design program was?
Do you mean school or school?
School or work experience, your first experience with a design program.
I studied in school, I studied a program called environmental design, which was not focused on interiors. It was designing the built environment.
Okay.
So that was a very helpful way to learn how to design, which has affected me my whole life. My first job was working for a society decorator whose best friend was Andy Warhol, and I would get sent to the D&D building to pick out 5 shades of peach, which did not prepare me for working in any way, but it was a great experience.
Thank you. We'll ask the question of, if you were looking for for a job today, no one is, I know. How would you do it? I think there's a difference between how millennials network, how Gen Xers may network, how baby boomers may network. So if any of you could speak to, if you were job searching, starting tomorrow morning, what would that look like?
I don't know, so I have to I've been in my job for like 19 years, so I need to know. Tell me
I would say not that I'm looking for a job. Like through LinkedIn is probably huge. I get like recruiter inboxes all the time. And I'm not saying that like I'm so special I'm getting them. I think everyone's getting them. But I would just say through like recruiters and then through LinkedIn mostly.
Well, I did this a year ago when I moved from Boston to New York. Yeah, I mean, I definitely applied. I worked my network, worked with the principals at my old firm in Boston, UAU in New York, worked the rep network. Definitely. The rep, yeah, anyway. Yeah, no, worked that. And then ended up talking to a friend, and he's like, no, you need to text Christine Vandover at HOK. And I was like, I'm going to text someone for a job. He's like, just text her. I was like, okay. So I texted, and I had coffee. Coffee time. And yeah, so I mean, I think it's really kind of what works for you, and how comfortable you are. That was definitely out of my realm of comfort. But yeah, so I think that it depends on the individual. I think it depends on kind of the professional advice of the people that you're kind of communicating with to get you these contacts. But for me, it was all about networking.
Okay.
I would just say that I did have to always be freelance. I would film productions. I would go from job to job. So usually I would just tell a few people I'm finishing up a job in a few weeks, and let's see what happens. So I luckily have not had to really work that hard for finding new jobs. Usually they arrived at my doorstep, knock on wood, except for a brief time of recession when it was very hard to find a job. In that case, I would take whatever came to me, essentially.
Okay. So we'll talk about social media. How do you feel social media is used for design? And if you have social media, which most of us do you combine your design kind of finds and aesthetic and your personal life, or do you separate the two, or do you feel that it's just like not ever even going to come close to being together?
I definitely think it's a way of life. I think it's kind of embedded in your DNA. Again, everything you do, everything you talk about. I mean, I probably bored the hell out of my friends talking about design and philosophical questions over red wine. But I mean, that's just again who I am. But I think it's an integral part of who we are.
Yeah, I would say this is a struggle I've had too. I really get stressed out about separating my social media and stuff. But through Instagram and stuff, I definitely, I made my Instagram public because I was posting a lot of things for work, either job sites or through community service things or whatever, and I make sure that I'm hashtagging the right things that are promoting Gensler, and it's also something that's personal to me. But I think combining them is good because it just shows that you're a person, and I don't think that there's a reason why, unless you're doing crazy things in your weekend social life on there, I think that it's good for clients to realize that you're just a human being.
I don't put anything personal on in social media, period. Especially when you have a son or a child, you become very protective of your life, and then just the idea oh, I'm going on vacation to Mexico, and everybody knows my house is now empty, and therefore, I'm maybe a little bit of I'm definitely a Luddite when it comes to that. When it comes to professional, I think it's a totally different realm, and that I'm free sharing on the professional realm, no matter what. But personal, I have drawn the line.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right.
Oh yes, Raj, go ahead.
Well, I'm just all about social media, but very curated, which I think is important. I think you just have to be really conscious of what you're putting out there because you never know who's seeing it really. So it could be a client, it could be your employer, or it could just be your friends. But yeah, it's very curated. My life was really cool.
if anybody needs help curating their So we talked about millennials and the entitlement that is received. Oh, sorry. Do you have social media?
I tend to be, I'm very curious, I always like to kind of watch, follow, but I'm more of an interior person. I like to think, spend time daydreaming, thinking. And I think what does probably the difference in generations is that sort of step where you just immediately do something and post it, I would think about it. So that sort of needs, and you think about it, like 10 minutes later, why post it? So I think I'm much more of an interior person, and I speculate and think, and try to imagine, design, and visualize just on my own. So I don't have that sort of need, but I think I'm really curious about it. I love to look at Instagram flow to get to see who has good Instagram flow, how does it all together. There's usually a good Instagram public, and then you do your private. I get it, but it's not something that's necessary. It's part of my DNA. I think it's just a choice. I'd rather just daydream. Sorry.
Well, that sounds wonderful.
Just to add to that, I'm curious, so for me, it's I'm not just posting to be oh, this is what I'm doing, I'm so cool. It's this is what I'm doing, this is the company I work for, and it's a little bit of a business development. So I think that's an interesting dynamic of the difference between how we can market to people versus what your generation is.
Yeah, someone else can do that. Here's a marketing department. They don't mind saying you get photos and post and go, yeah, I guess so. And yeah, so busy. I don't know how.
The cancer has a hard time keeping itself in front of the microphone.
Yeah, a lot of go through. It's pretty good at getting itself in the public, so
I don't think that, but when I'm targeting tech clients and startups, I think that that's what they're looking for. And I mean, a lot of the things that we pitch to them are we're just like you, and we're doing all these things similar. So.
And most companies, I think, have people who manage their social media. Well, smart ones do, because they know that everyone looks at that, or a lot of people look at that, and they'll see it, and that's part of that's just really part of every organization's brand, I think, at this point.
I think part of it too, also going off what you said with Gensler, I think when you're looking at specific companies, especially as potential recruitment or any type of talent acquisition or retainment or whatnot, I think we did the JP Morgan Chase and HOK posted that. It's something that someone who's maybe new to New York or looking for a job, it's I want to check out the culture of this place before I even get in to see before I even interview, just as kind of a let's thumb through, let's right click or swipe whatever to figure out swipe left, swipe right. No, but I think it is important, especially for potential recruitment, like you said, for large corporations that we all work for. I think it's really important to be able to see kind of what do people do for fun, because yes, it is work, but at the same time we spend 70 to 80% of our time at work with people that we work with, and we hate them. Not gonna be really good. And it's important. So I think that kind of gives you a lens into kind of a quick look, overview. So
I think that's the perfect setup for the last question before a Q&A with the audience. So Christina, you mentioned that you are showing your work life. I've heard the long hours. Do you think that social media, having that business development component, is really about the work-life balance? I'm at work all day, I'm working really hard, but it's really fun, or I'm working on fun stuff, and this is kind of my life. I'm not going to be isolated, and then I get home late and I have nothing to post. Do you think that's about work-life balance, or kind of integrating both together?
I think it could be. I'm fortunate enough to work with some people that I really enjoy who are here. But I think, it is your way of life, but I also do think the posting business development wise and that kind of stuff is just the spirit of the millennial generation, which is a little bit entrepreneurial, and without having to take on the risk of maybe trying to have your own business or do that. You are still kind of invested in what kind of clients you're bringing in. I mean, that's me personally. I like the business.
Or what tools are used to get that?
Well, I have actually taken work-life balance over a lot of other opportunities in the past, because because I found that I got out of film because it was crazy hours, and I literally would work 16 to 18 hours a day, sometimes even double days, which is 21 hours, and you know, I would do 10-day stretches without a break. So I found that, okay, this is not the career for me, so that's why I switched away to architecture, of course. It's so much later. No, but it has, I definitely have stayed with the firm I'm with currently because it allowed me to go part-time. So I do answer client emails on Mondays and Fridays, so clients know I do not disappear, and I make sure my team is busy, but I've also been teaching. So I do find that teaching is a lot less stressful, so it's a career without having the high stress of my other career. So I've stayed with my current employer because they've allowed me to expand that way. And I've taken that over maybe some of the other opportunities that would have arisen for me if I had wanted to just pursue an entirely different path.
It's out of whack. So now I can improve work-life balance. Like, unfortunately, I love my projects, I love the people I work with, and if you love that, you kind of, you can kind of bring back a little bit in the groups, then there is differences between the groups. So if we tackle like the millennials are, different, and we try to give them a role to kind of follow that role, I think we're pegging them into stereotyping them to the wrong place because everyone is so unique and individual. If you understand the person, then it really kind of, all the other parts fall away. So I think you really have to be careful not to confuse the impact of generational shifts, because the boomers did the same thing. The millennials really have a big impact on what happens at a macro level. But if you kind of say that's their role, that's what they should be doing, it's wrong, because not everyone's going to be Christina, like the shaker and the mover and getting the business developed. Someone might be like, I want to work really hard and have a, there's just different people. So I think you have to really think about this sort of general piece in a way that's very particular, very specific to the people you're working with, and not trying to find broad categories.
My only comment about work-life balance is, for me, the most pleasure that I get working with other people. The job is great, but when people are curious about multiple things, it's like you look at what this man does, he's got his hand in so many different pockets. And when I work with people that know about art or know about that to me makes the day better, and I think it makes the work better. I think people who have multiple facets to them, rather than just sort of a work, there are these great workhorses who sit at their computer all day and just get it done. Not so interesting, and they're great at getting things done, but they're not really the contributors. So it's people with their mind in multiple places, and that is the balance that I'm looking for with other people.
Okay, thank you all for your answers. And we're going to open the floor up to questions. If anybody would like to pose a question, just raise your hand. Anyone? Okay.
I have a question. Sorry. So when you were talking about Instagram and Pinterest, my only question that popped in my head that I wanted to go back to, as having a child that is 20 years old and a 12-year-old, they no longer communicate. They think you know them because they have a Pinterest and they have an Instagram and they have a Facebook and they have Snapchat. So even with their own friends, they don't communicate. So there's going to be this other panel sitting next to you that takes a lot of breaks, rarely comes to work, and is very late. You know them already. So I'm just wondering, as it moves through, people in the design world, are they getting ready for this group of clients that are going to come up that aren't going to talk to you or not going to explain anything, and you're supposed to know it? There's a little cut down when we said Pinterest, but there's this group coming in that's going to fully think that you understand that by their social media interactions.
I've actually had clients do that already. Pinterest page so we can tell you what we want.
Yeah.
Anything for me.
And that's going to become more dominant, is what I think.
Well, I think it's just, I don't know if it's a generational thing, it's more of an education thing of how our process works, and that's part of our job is to educate our clients on how the design process works. So people who may be younger or even older that don't necessarily understand the process
I would be interested in this couple answering. Just because they know that next generation is coming up, I would just be interested, like, do you see it that way where they need to learn to communicate, or do you feel that you maybe need to learn to communicate with them?
I feel, I don't know, I think I ride a weird line too because maybe I'm not the traditional millennial, but I think that, I mean, as far as like communication goes, I would say yes, I communicate a lot via email or texting or whatever, but through working, I just find like picking up the phone is easier, and I think a lot of people would stereotype our generation as people who don't know how to communicate, but I would say that's not really true. I don't know. That's a tough.
Well, I editorialize with everything, so I mean, I can talk to a wall, but so yeah, I understand like where you're coming from with that, but I think again, at the crux of it, it's communication, and I don't know. We took a vacation, my partner and I took a vacation, and we turned the phones off and just had books and sat there and talked to each other, and it was the best thing. I mean, it's the nicest thing to be able to like completely unplug from all of this and just be humans. Like, I think that's so important. It's just like a mental reprieve, like it's a respite for like your mind, and I don't have a problem with it, but but I think I can see exactly where your point is valid.
Like I have a 20-year-old who's been through a relationship, through meeting and breaking up, and I don't think they ever actually talked to each other.
I mean, I call like our partners back to talk to them every morning for like an hour, and they're like, really? I'm like, okay, it's coffee time now. Anyway, but I mean, I think it's human communication, and I think, again, that's what our field is about. It's about understanding human behavior. It's such a sociological field, and I think that taking communication, whether it be like phone, any type of human interaction out of it, like, what's the point for me? But
More critically, listening.
Exactly.
Well, the
Yes.
ability to listen is going to be
Yes.
what matters.
yeah.
Okay, we have another question in front.
So, I agree that it's not always just about a millennial, X-Gen, baby boomer. It is about the person. But as we see in our, in our clientele, or my past clientele, they keep wanting to push things faster and faster and faster. And it's the millennials or whatever, because they see technology pushing everything so fast. And we let it happen. How do we stop? And even as a millennial, you talk about the creative process takes time. How do we turn back this and make the creative process important again, instead of having people in the media show on HGTV that you can turn over a house in 2 days?
I think that what's interesting is like this. I think millennials and even the generations to come could be, and I think I might be wrong. We'll find out soon. Could be like maybe the first people who are actually willing to say no a little bit more, and I think it's that kind of just like mindset that like I don't think a lot of people are going to say like, well, the client's always right. It's like the customer's always right. I don't think that that's this generation. I think that they're definitely willing to kind of fight for it a little bit more.
Again, I think it's conversational. I mean, I think if I'm up against a crazy deadline, my boss and I'm able to go to her and I'm just, we really need to like dial this back. I think it's her having the respect for me to be able to really understand like the landscape of the project, to be able to say, hey, there's a red flag here, we're not going to be able to have this portion of it, or I can focus on this portion and get done really well. I think that, again, it's communication. Communication's key. And like you said, listening. I think listening and not talking, I think there's something to be said about that. But
I agree. That trap of like not listening to people. No, I think communication is the key word. I don't know if it has to do with any generation in particular, but just Yeah, and you know, if the team is communicating with each other, they can push back on the client. And, you know,
I think the other, what's really changed on it, it's generationally, it's also to break up the companies who used to deal with building department groups who had to understand the process and the schedule. Now you work with people that actually more marketing or more limited experience, so they kind of approach it like a marketing project. We're not gonna change everything. There'll be like some projects will have to be rapid fire, and some projects that'll be more thoughtful. I think we have to kind of pick and choose our battles. So sometimes you'll say the challenge is they want the rendering at the schematic concept level. And the rendering means everything is decided and fully thought out. So you have to kind of like, how do you kind of create renderings or tools or pieces that lay some pieces out, they can still continue to develop it and really communicate it and say very explicitly, here's where you're getting, and here's where you get later. But it's hard. I don't know, there's, you know, they're holding the purse strings, they are controlling this. You know, my generation probably always said yes to everyone. Yeah, sure, you want that? I'll give you that. I think it's going to be there's a range of projects where some are going to be fast tracked and some are going to hopefully slow down.
I would also say that like the level, and I don't think it's also generation, I just think it's over time what's happened, like the formality expected and the expectations of the client. So if something can be a little bit looser and in sketch form, then you can kind of make those same decisions without it being so buttoned up in a presentation. So I think that's, again, goes back to communication and just being open and like, yeah, this is rough, but this is our idea, and I think you can still get those answers.
That's what I like SketchUp. I think SketchUp has a building of openness that doesn't look so refined, where a 3D fully rendered piece is really sort of damaging, whereas SketchUp one has open possibilities. It's like more like a freehand sketch.
Yeah, it cheapens the design, I find. It's just like, it's design in the box. So.
but it knows any improvements.
Okay, so we have time for one more question. Okay?
Do you see a difference in terms of client collaboration across generations? Because one client we had specifically is like very Gen X / millennium, and they were very into the design process and gave us feedback like on spot, and were ready to design with us. Do you guys see that happening? Like, are all generations not about to do that, or what's your feedback, I guess, besides that?
I think a lot of that depends on your client base. I work mostly with financial institutions. Very few millennials, very few people who think outside the box. When you get somebody like that, it's fantastic, but it's very rare. Whereas Christina is working with tech people who are by nature younger and stick their necks out. They're also like, for me, my clients are professional clients. They do, this is their job. Whereas when you're working with clients who have their own businesses, you get the opportunity to partner with them on the design. And I would say, everybody here, including everybody in the audience, would rather partner with their clients than fight them.
Right.
But I think I think it's client specific. That's my answer to that question.
I agree. Like our healthcare clients, like I sit in user group meetings with physicians all day, and I think that when you can come to the table and you can really show that you understand the program and understand like what they're trying to get at and how their job operates and how it functions, and how you can provide a design solution that is not only functional and functions well and is at the 3.0 level, and normally we end up at like the 2.5 because we try to push them. But I think when there's a sense of respect because again, listening to like what their needs are, but you're able to kind of deliver something that's a unique solution, something that is, again, going to the brand, going to the institution, but you're dealing with very left-brain individuals, and I think a lot of it is iterative because there's a curiosity and they want to know kind of like, what is the design process and how does that relate to medicine? And I do with my partner, he's a physician as well, so it's interesting to like be able to have that kind of relationship of like, have you thought about this? How do you work on this? So there's this back and forth between that, and I think that, again, it's conversation, and I think they want to be a part of it because at the end of the day, when we turn the keys over, it's their building, and I think that it needs to relate to them because it's their story, not necessarily our story. We've only just been kind of superimposed on it or kind of walking
through the process with them. It's a lot of hand-holding, but it's also a lot of reading between the lines and kind of an intuitiveness to it. That's
Well, all right. I think tonight, I want to give a round of applause to our panelists. With us. I think tonight we learned that there are more similarities than differences between the generations, but clearly we have some kinks to be worked out. If you work with Barry, please come back with coffee in 10 minutes.